Hello and welcome to part 21 of the UBIK solution. And now we're going to have a look at the pelvis, spine 3, spine 2 and spine 1. And what I mean by that is if we have a look at the mesh, I'm just going to take the mannequin here. Then it's specifically the pelvis here, the spine 1, the spine 2 and the spine 3. And we're also going to do a few adjustments, but that is going to be more clear in a moment. So we're going to start off in the UBIK component and create a new function here called get base character transform. And that's going to get us return a transform, not surprisingly. So add a transform here. Okay. And we just start off by splitting this up here. We're going to base this off the component base shoulder transform. So we're going to split this one open, and the rotation itself, we're going to, because we don't want, when we tilt our head and well the shoulders, we do want actually want to change something in here with the shoulder transform, I believe, because we did this set shoulder last time, and I believe we want to ignore the tilt of the head. So what I mean by that is when we if we look at the two shoulder joints or the upper arms, when I tilt the head from side to side, you can see the shoulders, they also tilt. And I actually want to eliminate this, and this is a design decision. You can decide not to or whatever, but this is what I decide to do. So inside the set shoulder, I'm gonna split this one open and only use the yaw here. And that means that rotation that we are getting here, let's see, yeah, this rotation here, I think we can just pass it through like this. I have a feeling we need to do something else. Anyway, about the shoulder location itself. The shoulder location is, if you remember, somewhere at this level here. And if we look at the character itself, that position is kind of in the middle of everything. It's not 2, it's not 3, and it's not well, it's close to, well, it's going to be where the clavicle, it's going to be at the clavicle level. So what I did with this was to, if we switch out in the details here, we can and have the clavicle selected, select a world. Oh no, world here, world location. I can see the C level here is 152, and what I want is the let's see, just gonna see if I can figure out how to explain this. So I have the spine 3, that is the closest one here. So if I say 140 minus the clavicle is 12. So what I mean by that is that we're going to say minus vector, and then oops, we're going to split this open and say this goes in here, and then we need to construct an offset with the C. So I'm just going to do it as a float plus float. Obviously you should add these two together, but just to kind of illustrate where I get this 12 from. This is a 12, and then we need to add in the rest of the components to get because we want to get the pelvis here. So there's a difference between this spine 3 and spine 2. So now we have the clavicle to the spine. That was the 12. Then we have want to have the difference between 3 and 2. So we have 140, and here's one. Well, basically what we can do is say the location here. This is the same, but nevertheless. So if we just take out our calculator here and say, what was it? 140. So I say 140 minus 69.75. That's going to give us 43.25. So that's the rest we're going to add in here. So what this base character transform is now is it's actually the pelvis location that we are finding here, and the rotation is well, it is a base shoulder rotation, but yeah, I'm gonna explain that a little bit closer in a moment. So let's switch for now into the VR character anim BP, where we have this part here, and we're gonna get the because we're gonna have to, for now we're gonna have to reference this UBIK component a few times. When and if I can change this into a C++ or an integrated skeletal mesh node, it's going to be different, obviously. But for now, let's just promote this to a variable, call it UBIK count, and then we can reference it like this and say we want to get base. Oh wait, I forgot to actually set this. So we just created this get base character transform, and we don't currently do anything with it. So what we actually need to do here, how do we do this? I'm gonna put it in here. It's gonna be, I might change this. I haven't done this part yet, so I'm not entirely sure how to do it. So bear over with me for a second, while I figure this out. But what we are going to do here is, in the event graph of the UBIK component, we're going to promote this to a variable which we can read, call this base char transform. And I realize I don't need to promote this but to a variable really, but it just makes it a little bit nicer to look at. And then let's get it from this one. Base, get the base character. That was the function. Get base transform. So just like to get it instead of calling a function on the UBIK component. It doesn't really matter, but yeah. Promote to variable, call it the same, base char transform. There we go. So now we have that available to us. And now we're gonna start off by to set these rotation, because as I said, we're gonna change the logic here. Currently we have the head location set specifically. We're actually going to change this so the head translation is not going to be set anymore. So it's going to be ignore. Make sure you can't just hide it. You have to actually set it to ignore. So we have to set it to both hide it and ignore it. Well, you don't have to hide it, but and then we're gonna make quite a bit of space here because we're gonna do a bunch of things now. We're gonna make a spine 3 as a rotator, duplicate spine 2, duplicate and spine 1, and then we are also gonna create a pelvis. But that is going to be a transform, because that's going to be the only one that we are going to set from now on. So we're going to, let's just create the structure for this. Might as well do it now. So connect this up, and currently this is pointing to the bone, the head bone. So we're going to change this to the pelvis, and we want the translation to be set, and let's grab the pelvis here and split this open. The location is going to go directly in, but the rotation, since if you watch from the head and down, then the pelvis is the last joint in or bone in the chain. So since I'm going to drive the rotation of the body from the head, but with the head leading, it's going to be the last one. So it's going to yeah, well, I'm going to get back to this. Anyway, so we need to add a, if we just feed it in like this, it's going to be rotated wrong. So we're going to have to combine a rotator here, and the offset I'm going to add, and I know, and you just have to take my word for it for now, is 90 and 90 here. So these two needs to be added into this, and I'm just going to, otherwise it's going to take too long if I'm going to sit here and demonstrate how I experimented my way to these, but that's basically what I did with these input increment and decrement. Was I used these values here to plug in and figure out what values to feed into these nodes here. So I'm just giving you guys the values that I found to work okay. I really hope that made sense. Oops. Oops. Okay, so let's take the next one. Plug this in here. So now we go with the spine 1 and spine 1 to the top. No, wait. I almost made a mistake here. So this needs to be at the bottom, otherwise it's not going to be in local, I believe. And same here, spine 1 needs to be at the bottom, and the value needs to be 90, and well, it's not going to be completely 90. If you look at the skeleton, I'm going to explain it anyway. If you look at the skeleton, you can see the C rotation here, local rotation, is offset by 7 degrees, more or less 7 degrees. So if you want to get this sort of the same, what you need to say is 90 degrees minus 7, so 83 degrees. And we want to ignore the translation, so oh wait, so the pelvis needs to be set to replace. So we have the replace translation and replace rotation for the pelvis. For the spine 1, we're going to ignore the translation and only replace the rotation. Let's continue up the chain. So spine 2 and spine 2. And again, we look at the spine 2. How is it rotated? It's minus 14 degrees. So that needs to go the other way. So 90 and then plus 14 degrees, more or less, like this. And then the last joint in the chain is going to be spine 3. And you get the drift now, so I'm just going to enter the values that I have on I've noted down here. Like this, and we just need to hook up the last one, the head, and that is already rotated. You remember we did it. We did the offset here. Well, so if we wanted to make it more clear and do it the exact same way, we could do it like this, and then do the combination here. And notice I passed in a transform, and that was because I used the location, so technically I should change this. So let me do that, just so it's a little bit more clear. And this. It. I don't know what happened there. Anyway, so we're setting the head rotation, and here we're setting the base transform. And then on the anim graph, okay, so I guess we combine like this. Let's save this and compile. And this is the head, and this is, oh, this needs to be spine 3, spine 2, spine 1, and the pelvis. So let's see, what are we missing? Well, technically we are, I think, almost done, except we are of course not setting these here. So what I want to do here is to create a little lag in between each joint, so it just looks a little bit more organic, so to speak. So I'm gonna say get the spine 3 and then set, and then do our interp between them. So do a interp 2, and let's create a variable for this. Body interp speed. Let's set this to, for now let's just set it as low as 10, so just so we can see what happens. And delta time is get world delta seconds, and the spine 3 is a current, and the new rotation is what we feed in through here. Okay, So this is spine 3. I'm meaning the top one in the chain here. So when you turn your head, the upper body is going to be the first one to turn. And then we're going to use the set spine 2, and then use that as the input. So we can just copy this stuff here. And then say spine 2 is the current, spine 3 is the target. Yes, and yes. Let me just clean this up a little bit. Okay, and let's do the last one. Spine 2 and spine 1. Connect that up. And set spine 1. I think that's it. Let's give it a test. Okay. The body is not positioned as I want it to. Pelvis, replace. Place. It's weird. Shoulder, location, minus. That's weird. Why? Pelvis location. Am I not setting this? Oh, that's why. I forget to set the pelvis. Ah, great. So set pelvis all the way towards the end, and I'm not gonna do a an interp for the last joint here, but we're gonna get the base character transform, and if you remember, that was what we did. We calculated the pelvis location here. So this is gonna go into the pelvis location, and now it should work. Yes. Now we can see we have the body following, and when I rotate, you can see the body rotates with it, and there's a bit of a lag. So it's way too much at the moment. But okay, so this part looks okay. So I think it's okay to test now in VR. Okay, so we can see the body is rotating now, and yeah, it's too much, but nevertheless. And actually our shoulders, they are maybe a little bit too high, so I'm actually gonna adjust that a little bit. And also I noticed one thing when I looked at it in simulate mode. I can see the two things. I can see the shoulder joint is a little bit, well, it's not that much off, but the head is a little bit off here. So if we, I think we can solve this by going into the set shoulder, and then we have this offset here. So I'm gonna set this down to -12, I think. Just lower it a little bit, maybe -13. -13 looks like it's centered kind of in the middle of the head. So last test, and then I think that's it for this video. And then we can move on to something else next time. So yeah. Well, it's okay. And I'm looking at the small balls here. I can see they are roughly at where my shoulders are on the mannequin, so it's okay. But we're gonna change some of this stuff anyway. Yeah, that's something for the next video. So that is what I had for this video. I will be seeing you in the next. So bye for now.